Vosh is a guy on the internet. We haven't talked too much about Vosh, maybe like once a week or so for the past several weeks. He's kind of getting boring even for me. I think he's getting boring for other people. He's basically turning into like one of the ultimate like political content slop farms. A person without the political acumen to do sort of what like Majority Report does, and a person that no longer has the sort of gumption or gall to do what like a Destiny does, or even like maybe an Infra Haas does. Can't fucking swing with the kids in the fucking cornfield. Can't fucking rise up to the heights of the ivory tower. He's sort of stuck in the latrines somewhere between, and I think things are kind of stagnating for him, but maybe not. Maybe he's doing good. I don't know. I don't really care. But this is a sort of final statement, I guess, from old Ian Kaczynski on if Trump wins. And people suggested that I watch this, so we're gonna fucking go ahead and check it out at 1.5, 1.25 maybe speed. This is a very serious man. For the record, by the way, this individual is younger than me by about 7 years. That fucking internet, little girl internet cartoon pussy ages you, boy. That cartoon pussy ages you like you wouldn't believe.
And I'm not going to. Probably like the number.
Why is that so low?
If I did a tally, and I'm not going to, probably like the number one question that I get asked is, what do we do if Trump wins?
Can I pre-answer? What do we do if Trump wins? You wake up the next day and you live your life. You at home, internet leftist, what do you do if Trump wins? You go to sleep that night, have a couple drinks, be sad, and then wake up and do everything that you would have done if Trump had lost. I'll tell you, that's what you do now. Politically, you're not done. The work's not over if Kamala Harris wins. If Kamala Harris wins, do you know what you do? You have a couple drinks and you be happy, I guess, if you want to. Then you go to sleep and you get up and you do whatever the fuck comes to your mind that you need to do during the day. You get a shower, talk to people like a normal human being, say like, hey, what about that election? And then you get on with your fucking life. That's what you do, okay? You pretend that the grass you're touching is being touched. And if you're politically motivated and politically activated, then you continue doing all of the stuff that you should be doing, which is keeping up to date on your upcoming races, staying up to date on the news of especially your local elected officials. Do your best to maintain a healthy mental distance from traumatizing shit that you can't do anything about. That does include the genocide that's happening. Yeah, you got to say, you know what? I can't do anything about that. So I'm going to ignore it for a week. Well, the people that are there can't do it. Yeah, well, you can't because you're not there. And if you were, you could probably actually do something about it. You'd be like fucking trying to hide people or move them around or do this and that. And maybe like once a week, you as a treat, you can endlessly doom scroll and worry about the genocide. But otherwise, no, what you do is you maintain a healthy mental distance from shit that will cause crippling anxiety and depression in you, maintain a healthy news diet, learn about what's going on, and then prepare for the next series of elections as with the distance that they should be prepared for, which is, as a side note, in the one time you're ever going to be alive on this fair and green earth of ours. Okay? You should go and get Starbucks. That's what you should do. The day after the election, if you have a Starbucks around, you should go get Starbucks. I hate Starbucks. Go do it anyway. Say hi to somebody. Or don't. Go to your local coffee place. Deny me. Break that rule and go do something else. That's what you should do. If Donald Trump wins, same fucking thing is what you should do, because you are not the elections that you follow. You're more than that. You're a whole fucking person. I'm sorry to say it. I know it sucks. You're a whole human being with one life to live on this fair green earth of ours. And elections and electioneering and voting is not the entire summation of your life. And as a matter of fact, the day after election day, it is no longer in your hands. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You did it. You did it. You participated in democracy. If your person loses, right, Your only goal is to maintain the structures of democracy for another 4 years until you can do it again. If someone tries to destroy democracy, work with your local police precincts, vote in the next election that comes up to try to remove that stuff. But understand the responsibility that you have to your government at minimum begins and ends with educating yourself and then voting on what is literally voting onable for you, for whatever's up for the vote. That's what your responsibility is. And the day after, you can take a breath. Even if you lose, you can take a breath. The reason that we're upset with Donald Trump and that you should be pissed at the fucking Republican Party right now is that they have tried to create a situation where you can't take a breath after the election. But any decent American system, if we go back even to when it wasn't perfect and things were still rough, the day after the election, you should be able to take a breath, say you did your duty as an American, and then go get yourself a coffee, take a walk, enjoy the fall as the leaves begin to change color. If you're out in the desert, go fucking eat 4 pounds of sand, as I am sure you Mojave people do when we're not paying attention or playing one of you in a Fallout game. That is it. You did it. You did it. As a matter of fact, the second you leave the voting booth and you get the voting I voted sticker, I personally give you a year off of politics. A year. You get a year off of politics. Just literally start ignoring it. Every single issue you thought about during it, literally start ignoring it. For a year. Why? Why would you care? You voted. Are you up for election? Did you get elected? Well, then obviously you have to care. If you want to start trying to be a little bit of a hardliner and making shit that got passed, you can fucking return to work early. But I personally am giving you a year off of politics the second you cast your vote in a presidential election. A whole year. That'll take you halfway to midterms. Okay? And then you can start hyper focusing again bit by bit, maybe once a week. But literally the thing that happens, win or lose, is you should take a break. Okay? Because Donald Trump isn't going to get elected and then he's not president yet, first off, if he gets elected. The day after he gets elected, no one gives a fuck. It's January 6th. You know what I mean? Inauguration day is the day he becomes the president. So as a matter of fact, take the day off until Inauguration day. Literally just back up. Don't care. Stop reading the news. Are you involved in the electoral process? Do you want to be mad? If you want to be mad, go ahead and be mad. But if you don't, literally take the next 2-3 months off of politics. I'm not even fucking kidding. Stop watching me if I make you upset. If you manage to get through all of this and you vote, win or lose, take a fucking couple months off of thinking about any of this shit. Focus on your family. Christmas is coming up. There's going to be some Black Friday sales. Literally fucking decompress, people. That's it. Decompress for maybe the first time in years, some of you. You did it. You got to the voting place. You voted. You did your best. If someone got in your way and they fucked you over, you can be mad about it. But honestly, you tried your fucking best. Just fucking take a break. You know what I mean? That's really my answer for this. Once midterms start coming up, once you feel like you've been away kind of too long or something, like, dude, I should start paying attention to fucking politics again, then get back into politics, okay? Start reading your local newspaper, check out some majority report shit. I've said step back to mostly just your specific local periodical and AP News and Reuters, as far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't even fuck with Al Jazeera at this point because you're just going to fucking cook your fucking brain over shit that you cannot change. This was your attempt to change it. You did the vote. Oh, sorry, it doesn't feel like that much. It's a lot. It's a lot. People fought for it to be just that little bit. Trust me. Every time you vote, that's 50,000 gallons of fucking patriot blood that was spilled on some dog shit fucking field. Who the fuck knows where? Screaming, crying, burning flesh, all that shit. That's done. Bought, paid for. Blood of patriots. Good. We're done. You're on the other side of it. All of that equals your vote. You did it. You looked up your candidates. You walked into a place with old people and some stale pastries. You cast your fucking ballot. You participated in the hopefully as peaceful as possible transition of power in the largest government in the history of the human race biggest, most powerful, wealthiest, most dangerous, and it was fucking like that easy. Why? Because of all of the bloodshed, death, and murder, okay? And we want to not go back to that, and you don't have to focus on it. Get a coffee. I'm not even fucking kidding you. Get a coffee and think about something else. Buy a video game. You deserve it. You voted. Buy yourself a video game. Congratulations. Celebrate. You got through it. It's over. It's fucking over. And treat it like it's over for a little bit. That's what you should do. If he wins, if he loses, that is what you should do. Fucking take care of yourselves. That's what I'm going to say. That's what I like. And it's not irresponsible of you. It's okay to put your fucking oxygen mask on first. Take a fucking breath and step back for the love of fucking God. Don't be like me. Don't be a guy that's yelling at people on the fucking internet for money, okay? Live a normal person's life, however weird you are. Go to work. Say sorry about the loss. Or congrats for the win. Didn't want your team to win, but whatever, man. Congratulations to your coworkers. Be above the attempts at conflict and destruction of this experiment in democracy that so many people seem fucking willing to jump into. Be above the most extreme wings of the political system that's talking about all of this, and be a normal human being. Say hi to another American, and be happy that you don't smell the day-to-day death and rot of war in the air around you. Okay? Yeah. Are you blessed? Literally, yes. Count your blessings. Literally, go around. Point of privilege. Today I'm breathing unpoisoned air, or only slightly poisoned. Buy yourself a coffee, take a breath, and literally just take the day off. Take the fucking month off. Take a year off of politics. That's my answer. Let's see what Vosh has to say.
You know, and I understand why people ask me that, as annoying as it is for me to answer, because you're worried. And I'm worried too. You know, I think it's a valid thing to be concerned about. I can't see the future. And if I'm going to give you a full spiel on what I think will happen, it'll be in the form of like a YouTube video and not a 7-page long email response. And here I am making the YouTube video. Back in 2020, right before the election, I did the same thing. What if Trump wins? What if Biden wins? Here I am doing it again. It's been 4 years. Isn't that crazy? It's been 4 years! And everything has stayed the same or gotten worse for the most part. You know, the
young
NRA's
man's
done some good
complaint.
stuff under Biden. But apart from that, that's how life be. So what if Trump wins? Okay, so in this scenario, Donald Trump has won either because he won the Electoral College, or because following a period of instability after the election, he and, you know, the Supreme Court, whatever, like, you know, through legal shenanigans, he was able to seize victory from the jaws of defeat. And now, like, we're all malding, we're very mad, and he's going to be president. So Donald Trump mentally is cooked. He's sundowning. He has dementia, I assume. He's not one with agency. Right? He is a puppet. Now, most presidents are to a large extent puppets, right? Like when you're the head of state of a country this large and powerful, you are beholden to the interests of so many people and institutions. You aren't just like making decisions yourself. You know, everything is getting back-checked. Everything is getting lobbied. Everything is getting consulted beforehand. It's just how the game is played. It's unfortunate. It's undemocratic in a lot of respects, but it's also how things work. Donald Trump is not pulling his own strings, so to speak. In reality, there are groups of people who are using Donald Trump as a charismatic figurehead because they want power themselves. It's a lot of different groups. You have a large contingent of the military-industrial complex, which tends to align itself with, let's say, more militarily inclined leadership. You have Christian evangelicals who want you dead, more or less. The broader, like, reactionary base in this country.
Just look on the bright side, in short. I wouldn't even say just look on the bright side. I won't tell you to ignore the issues. Sketchy got hands. You know, I'm worried my whole humanity is gone and that you're going to lose all your rights and stuff. I get that too. Here's the thing. Worrying about something you can't change, even if it's the worst fucking thing in the world, won't do anything. That's the thing that sucks about it. And usually it'll put you in a spiral where you stop focusing on the prioritization of how you can fix the problem. This is actually more like a military thing, okay? It's kind of like no point crying over spilled blood. I know that sounds psychotic, but like say you're in a foxhole and the guy next to you gets shot, okay? Bloop. You knew the guy for fucking years. Brain's been turned inside out. He's basically like a jack-o'-lantern. It's been cracked open. Whoopsie-daisy. Probably the most traumatizing experience of your life. Literally horrible. You're never going to see the guy again. You can start focusing on all of these horrible things, or you can take a breath, compartmentalize that, separate from it for a second, and then like let life proceed in a way that you can start focusing on what to do. Do you know what I mean? There will come time to deal with trauma and issues that are going to come from that, situation that aren't just the immediate needs of the moment, obviously, like getting rid of a body, fucking counterfire and stuff, and that specific allegory. But hyper focusing on that or allowing yourself really to be distracted by it is letting the situation take you over. And I know that sucks, and it's one of the hardest things to do, but it's like, it's an ascension in your ability to process the world around you, and it's going to give you a real edge. Is the just, okay, fuck, all right, fine. I've been sentenced to death. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, okay, I've got like literally 9 months to live. Do I want to spend all day crying about it? Do I want to spend the next 9 months thinking about like, fuck, I'm going to die every goddamn day? I mean, you might not be able to not think about it and stuff, but being able to just kind of compartmentalize trauma or compartmentalize exhaustion sometimes and just set it somewhere and be like, okay, I can put that on a honeydew and take care of it in a little bit, but first I'm going to let my body recover from the shock of it happening at all before I try to process all of the terror and fear. And the reality of it is not just okay, it's sometimes the thing that you really have to do. I'm kind of getting in deep into like actual trauma response shit. And it's not like, oh, it's healthy. Like literally just never deal with it is bad as well. That's how you get the PTSD and make it worse. But like serious shocks to your system, and exhaustion is a shock. It is. Understand this. You being worried about something for more than fucking like a day is anxiety, basically. Like that's anxiety. Long-term anxiety will make you sick. If not in your physical body, in your mind, both. All right. If you don't believe me in it, go fucking talk to shrinks, go talk to doctors and be like, hey, I have long-term anxiety. Like I've been worrying about shit every day and I can't stop thinking of it. They'll go like, we should try to stop. And as hard as that sounds, that's literally the fix. And it's one of those things where some people can, and if you can, you absolutely should. You have to like evolve your psyche to compartmentalizing things so that you can hold your literal pain in your hands mentally and say like, okay, I'm going to give you your due, but you have to fucking wait because I'm in charge, is literally what you're doing. You are going to wait for me to address this, and I'm going to do it in my own time. And when I do, it will be done. But you're going to wait because you're my trauma. I'm not your victim. It's like literally, don't make me, I'm going to start getting fucking weepy about this shit. But that's high level stuff. It's hard to get to, but that is how you move kind of from being a very unhealthy person to at least a sometimes healthy person when dealing with your mental health issues. It takes practice. It's something that you're going to fall short of and you're going to fail. Sometimes people will be like, why are you being a fucking psycho? Why aren't you like literally just collapsing under the strain of the immediacy of this horrific moment? But sometimes it is how you have to deal with stuff. And, you're going to figure it out at your own pace if you start trying to figure out how to deal with issues like this. But understand, being worried for 2.5 years or for 12 years, like I was talking with this election, about the immediate loss of your rights is first off not going to change that loss. It's not. It's not going to do anything for the better or for the worse of it. It's just pain. It's just worry and it's just fear. Finally, grabbing that cocksucking fucking motherfucking worry by its throat and then holding it out at arm's length and saying you're going to wait your fucking turn before I deal with you is one of the hardest and most mature things that you will have to do as an adult. And some people will never make it to that place. Some people will let their trauma, their anxiety, their worries dominate their lives. All right. And some people will get off on it. Your response to trauma may become literally misery wants company. And that's kind of how you end up in the sort of like swells of doomerism that kind of pop up around communities like Vosh. I'm not saying that's necessarily what he's doing in this video, but that's just the thing I've seen. The mature adult thing is literally to try to fucking grab your trauma by the throat, Not say like, you know, oh fuck, I'm the badass, but like literally give me fucking 10 minutes. Give me 2 days. Give me an hour. Give me a year and I'm going to deal with you, but you're going to fucking you're going to step back. I'm not going to wake up doom scrolling about you. I'm going to fucking take it into my hand. Literally. Like that. And it's hard. It's very, very hard. I suggest if you're going to try to do something like that, talk to a therapist, make sure you're dealing with things in the most healthy way. And, you know, if you have a system or something like that, I've brought this up to people I've been in therapy with. Make sure that, you know, you run over your coping mechanisms, which is what that is. It's a coping mechanism. Run over that coping mechanism with your therapist and just double check to make sure it's like, hey, an idiot on the fucking internet that talks about politics and I think maybe he's a cannibal or something. I'm not 100% sure on that. He told me to strangle my trauma and tell it to wait. What should I... Have you heard of something like this? And they're like, that's the most insane way I've heard of that articulated, but here are some other ways. Here's the issue you've gone through, and I've talked to a lot of other people that have gone through this too, and I can't recommend whatever the fuck it is he said, but, you know, it is good to compartmentalize and then deal with trauma by trying to, like, see it for what it is. And yes, treat exhaustion and treat anxiety and treat long-term worry as what it is, which is a type of trauma. It'll fuck you up. One of the best things you can do for your mental health is just not get on social media right when you wake up. No, absolutely not. And it's one of the other things. I want my I want my thing not to be like a safe space. I don't like that shit. But just a fucking like a safe room, you know. I would like to think that when people come to my Discord, which is the Westside, hang out, you know, that it's got like good fucking Resident Evil safe room vibes to it. Not like you're going to be completely protected. You have to leave. You have to keep playing the game. You know what I mean? This isn't a place that you can sit in and hide forever, but if you need a couple seconds to breathe, pop in, then pop the fuck out.
Evangelical or otherwise, a lot of them are acting out of a desire to impose.
Mang is super chatted 27 Swedish kroner, I think that is. Helping yourself is still helping someone else. Yes, true. True.
A new order on this country. I've talked at length about what that order looks like and what it's inspired by in other videos, but the basic gist of it is I think that for the most part, it is a fascist political will that is at a populist level built from men who feel sexual insecurity. I think that's how most fascism...
Hold on, I'm sorry. What the fuck was that? Let me run by that one again.
But the basic gist of it is I think that for the most part, it is a fascist political will that is at a populist level built from men who feel sexual insecurity. I think that's how most...
Do you remember earlier in this program when I was saying, so even I felt crazy saying it, that the Vosh subsection of that twin fork is like this highly sex focused thing? I did not pre-watch this. That's what I think the major issue with his subsection is. I'm going to flatly disagree. I don't think that sexual frustration is the heart of fascism. It really isn't. It's just one of the factors that people can play against. Fascism is, and I'll say this a million times over and over and over again, it has its permutations, but it's literally about making an us-them mentality, drawing the circle around us, and then solving for us to make sure there's no them in it and them stays out there. That's pretty much it. The sexual frustration angle of it is way too hyper-focused, okay? There are people that legitimately think in America that they are being replaced. And it's got nothing to do with their dicks. They're going to be offended by you saying that, and it's not going to address any of the things that they are trying to do to make their brand of fascism spread out. They are literally becoming anachronistic to the times that we live in at speeds that normally that doesn't happen. Like, Christianity is back-footed kind of worldwide in the developed world because what Christianity provides, and usually kind of what organized religion in general provides, is no longer worth what it costs in most Western societies, right? The trade-off for what you get to what you cost, and I won't get into all of that stuff, but basically a lot of people are making that calculation and they're saying no. But what Christianity needs is a large follower base to work, okay? And so in America, the evangelical Christian base is shrinking bit by bit by bit by bit. Even when they increase and gain new members, a lot of time it's their kids, and then their kids get up and they leave churches. Or even when they stick around, the churches liberalize, and churches are liberalizing more than they have ever before. You go to a lot of downtowns, there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but you know, I'm gay and I'm trans and I'm this and I'm that. There's a lot more Unitarian type churches. There's a lot of people that are identifying as Christian and shit that were never accepted as being like Christian back in the day, while also maintaining their identity. And so that's kind of changing the disposition. It's changing the voting base. And so the people at the top are like freaked out about it. It's not necessarily just Christianity, but also a sense of Western 1950s to 1970s morality that the current oldest generations of the voting populace in America were raised on is basically gone. And a lot of the people from the 50s to 70s now are starting to die a lot because they are hitting the death period of life. You know, heart attack, stroke, cancer, all of that stuff gets you. And so they are also leaving. So the generation immediately after them that wants to hold on to like their parents and how they understand their parents, 80s to 90s, starting to get into my generation, is like suffering their crisis of consciousness about how much of what their parents are they want to hold on to. Okay, that's kind of really what America is going through right now. The America of 1950 to 1990 is over. Politically, it's gone. Most of the people that ran the country during those years are dead, dying, or literally walking around insane in front of you on stage. Demographics that existed no longer exist. There is no clean line between black and white people anymore like there was in the 1980s and 90s. There's intermarried families. Hispanic people are making up a larger and larger subsection of America, and even though they're increasingly conservative in their own way, it's in their own way. Latinos are conservative in a conservative Latino way, which does not meld well with a conservative WASP view of the world. And so there's a bit of a back and forth there. And basically, America's in a demographic tumult because demographics are always changed. They just really always do. There's no great replacement by anything other than the generations that are coming after the generations before. Generations of people that loved a conservative sense of whiteness and loved a conservative sense of a Christian America and a sense of American exceptionalism that had no real desire to kind of look inward at the negative aspects of American foreign policy, and that had a very beatific view of America as a world player, because we were the people that destroyed Nazism and that beat back fucking rampant communism, and we're just not that America anymore. And the America that wasn't the America that was before that. The America of the Great Depression and the America of the Industrial Revolution and the America of the post-Western expansion. And we're not the America from before that. Like, we always change. But this is one of the few times where the demographic can really watch itself being replaced in real time. Old people are trying to hold on to shit. And because of their terror and their fear, that naturally leads to a sense of fascism that they don't see as fascism. It's Heinlein's literal type of fascism. I'm drawing a circle around what I love the most. And anything that's not like the thing that I love has to be bad because I feel like it's trying to destroy me. That it's basic, it's banal, it's very simplistic, and it's still fascism, yeah, because it's populist based. And there's people that are trying to prey off of those insecurities and those terrors and those fears, and they're getting scared themselves because their careers are based on terrifying people that were born in 1945 to 1964. And we're running low on those people and running out of them every year. And the people that are coming after them like what you're selling and care about that fear less and less and less and less and less. Are there aspects of sexual freedom and sexual, promiscuity and the incel movement and people being unhappy and stuff? Yeah, there's some aspect of that. But not only is it not the most important thing, it is such a subsection of what the real issue is in America between the American right and the left that actual on the ground people experience. I could have a conversation like this, and if I explain to my dad, like, hey, do you think that America is becoming fascist because young men can't get laid? He would have Jesse, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, literally no fucking idea what I'm talking about. And he's a Republican. He's voted Republican fucking forever. I don't hate him because of that. I literally, he's my fucking dad. My dad is not voting for Donald Trump because young men can't get laid. That's never even been on his fucking mind. He's 60. Like, this year, he turned fucking 60 years old. He didn't give a shit. If I found out he knew what the term involuntarily celibate meant, I would be shocked beyond fucking belief. And even if I found out my little brother was actually conservative, which I don't think he is, I think he's pretty fucking undecided, doesn't give a shit. Even if I found out he was conservative, I don't think incel shit would be what he cares about. I literally, if I racked my mind, I know so many fucking Republicans. I grew up on the west side of Cincinnati. Okay, I live in Kentucky. I can talk to conservative people by walking outside and saying hello. Okay? And the amount of them that don't give a fuck about sexual promiscuity as a primary day one issue is almost all of them. You probably have to push like one old lady who's like, the gays is weird, you know? But even on the Republican side of things, I can't bring up any polls off rip, but just like literally like listening to the general conversations that are out there. The trans shit is on the internet and like maybe popular with a few fucking psychos, you know what I mean, here and there. But it's a losing issue. The biggest concerns are people basically being hoodwinked about what makes the economy work, which has been the standard conversation in politics since before I was born. Is a more labor-oriented or a more owner-oriented type of economy better? That's the most basic fucking thing that people are concerned about election for election. Like the question of how is gas more expensive? How much do eggs cost? How much is a gallon of milk? None of that has anything to do with whether or not fucking Nick Fuentes is a fucking secret gay. None of it does. And it's just insane that this conversation is being distracted that way. It's so divorced from reality. Like, we're not going to save America with our cocks. Gooners are literally just not the most pressing concern outside of Asmongold and Vosh's audiences. People aren't even really talking about gooner politics that much when I listen to DGG or Hassan. Like, yeah, they get brought up a little bit. Hassan uses them as a scapegoat whenever he gets a fucking second. But it's not like that's the fucking heart of the conversation. It's a distraction at best over there. But for here, it's like, is it really going to be centered in the conversation? I hope not. I hope I did a big distracted ramble for nothing. I hope. I pray.
Fascism crops up, really. You have men who feel anxious and like they are no longer needed in the modern world. There are narratives spread of like foreigners taking their jobs, taking their women. They're like entitled to a given life that has been robbed of them by some nefarious group. You know, usually they say like it's the Jews or the deep state or feminazis. There's a lot of stuff. It's complicated, but they're fascists. They want Trump to win because if he does,
Umberto Eco's fascism essay is great and a relatively brief overview of the themes and signs of fascism. I kind of slightly disagree. I've read fascism like 3 or 4 times. I resisted the urge. The fascism fucking video essay was actually the first one I was thinking about making before I got into Starship Troopers. And an earlier draft of Starship Troopers that never got typed out remotely focused heavily on redefining fascism so that it could be more valuable and descriptive in any way, shape, or form. But just as a quick aside, the Umberto Eco's fascism is deeply flawed. It is just a deeply flawed assessment of fascism. I can't get into it without bringing it up and distracting us. It legitimately, it's not horrible. It's not like the worst thing ever, or I disagree with it 100%. It's actually good enough that to talk about it would require in-depth, like an hour-long amount of like talking about shit. I have read extensively on fascism, very, very extensively. I mean, the Fascist Manifesto, the Giovanni Gentile shit. I've read fucking gigantic chunks. I hope the fucking translation was good of Benito Mussolini's writings on the subject and what they were trying to accomplish relative to what Umberto Eco saw put into place when he was living in Italy at the time of the the fascist uprisings and stuff, coupled with how fascism was adopted by Germany and how the teachings of Gabino, Jean Francis Gabino, I think. He's a French scientific racist. He's the guy that invented the three races: Mongoloid, Caucasoid, and Negroid, that whole bullshit. His writings on race, he was trying to bring back the Bourbon Empire. His writings on race informed the guy whose name I can't immediately remember off the top of my head, who wrote this big essay that directly informed Hitler's politics on race. The true like architect, not of the Holocaust, but of the basically of the Jewish question, and how those racist writings came to inform the National Socialist strain, German National Socialist strain of fascism, and why we now have a sort of skewed version of fascism, and why now current versions or definitions of fascism are heavily flawed on the left. I've seen a number of them where you diverge from definitive fascist characteristics into just, but also fascism has to have these things that I don't like, that make no fucking sense whatsoever, given how fascism was developed or what it actually tries to accomplish. Like I think I watched like 2 seconds of Kid Not Kin's response, and I went, where he's like, no, you see that like Hitler privatized stuff, and so like fascists have to privatize shit. Really, a lot of the lefty articulations of fascism post 1945 are, look, you have to hyper focus on Nazism and to a lesser degree Mussolini's Italy, which literally defined fascism, because what we need to do is make sure that you focus on that and not the fact that actually socialist precursor conditions that anyone can feel, populism, a lack of surety in the economy, and a sense of displacement within one's own country, those like socialist preconditions, that make you like, hey, I'm really, really upset with the owners. And when you say the owners, you can say like, oh, you upset with the owners, or are you upset with X fucking minority? We can do that instead. You always have the socialist preconditions. People that are actually very, very, very like cool with like what socialism can accomplish and do, can not just be swayed by fascists, but can be kind of become overnight fascists in and of themselves, because fascism is literally just an offshoot, a poisoned offshoot, like a cancerous growth from socialism if you don't catch it early and you don't pay strict attention to it, which is just very, very obvious when you see a lot of fucking communist countries go south like fucking instantaneously. Because people will say like, oh, fucking, yeah, well, didn't Hitler kill the socialists? So he couldn't be a socialist, right? Because knowing socialists on the internet, none of them, given the chance, would ever kill the other socialists. It seems like that couldn't be a possible part of it. But then you look to fucking, basically literally every other fucking socialist revolution on earth, and there was some sort of consolidation, violent or otherwise, of what socialism meant immediately after one subsection of the very many ideas of what socialism is supposed to be took control. So, you have the execution of anarchists. You have the elimination of subsections of the Great Party over in fucking Mao. And you have restructures and reconsolidations and re-eliminations. Why? Because once you've drawn the line and you've defined us, you may find that parts of us don't really agree with me. And so me is a little bit of a smaller circle that you can draw and crush it down to consolidate power. It's just obvious. It's an obvious thing that people can do. And so fascism is good at kind of defining what fascism was and what its most obvious ideas and articulations were at the time of the Italian fascist uprisings or revolutions or power taking, what have you, and then the fucking occupations that came afterward. But there's also a lot of aspects of that are not definitive, even when you are describing other fascist uprisings. Some of the things are kind of confused. Some of them are a little bit overlapping. I think some of them are issues with, some of them are just issues with translation more than likely, or something like that. And ultimately, there's a lot of things in there as well in these multiple points that are just aspects of governance in general, of a country at war. So even a country that was not fascist would probably be doing very similar things in order to like maintain control, which is a lot of the issues that lefties have when they're trying to articulate fascism, is that there's an inability of people to separate any sense of authority at all from authoritarianism, which is a completely different beast. So you have people calling like the government and Starship Troopers authoritarian when it literally just isn't, right? It's just not. Public executions does not an authoritarian government make. Like if you can rise to a certain position and be able to be elected to be in charge, and any single person could do it, and the person that is elected, the worst thing that they did literally in that fucking, that, because you're trying to like, oh, it's authoritarian, they have like kids in the middle, blah, blah, blah. Dude, you know why it's not authoritarian? Fucking Sky Marshal Deans steps down from the highest point of power, and Sky Marshal Tahat Maru takes the highest seat of power, and they change tactics. Literally the opposite of authoritarianism. That doesn't happen in authoritarian governments. In authoritarian governments, when you make a mistake, you didn't. That's how authoritarians work. You trade power only through death or assassination. You know what I mean? Natural death or assassination. That's it. The Sky Marshal Deans saying, I fucked up and I left, and being literally accountable to the people that are underneath him and his electorate is just, that's it. So yeah, it's a stratocracy, but it's still a republic. So it's still a liberal fucking democracy based on its own standards. They just don't happen to be the standards that you are. But because the people are wearing gray uniforms, they're like, this has to be authoritarianism. It's like, dude, the people in the fucking Federation probably have as much or maybe even more control over their government than we do, because when would a fucking American president step down after a major military disaster? Like, literally, could you imagine? Bay of Pigs happened and JFK went, I fucked up, I'm leaving, and left? It would never fucking happen. You know what I mean? Could you imagine George Bush, instead of doing mission accomplished, he's like, well, we've been mired in this thing for 5 years, it's been a long time, and I'm not feeling good about the way that this happened. There was war crimes that was done, and I'm gonna step aside, and I'm gonna turn it over to my good friend Barack Obama, who was the next located, they got the second most votes next to me. I'm gonna turn it over. All right. Like, that doesn't fucking happen. It's literally a more liberal government than the one that we live in, but it's just literally any presence of the aesthetics of fascism is more prominent to like lefties as being indicative of fascism than the actual like behaviors, because no one wants to look into it. Because the deeper you look into fascism, the more often you are than not to find things like, well, that I do that. And it's like, yeah, you do. You do that. What do you think that means? Like, well, I can't be a fascist. I believe in socialism. Fascists killed the socialists, so I can't be a fascist. I'm an anarchist, so I could never be a fascist because I'm an anarchist. It's impossible. Literally, it's impossible. It could never happen because I'm above that. Like, but there's people that have political beliefs that think that their political belief somehow makes them more like ontologically, almost like deontologically immune to their perceived version of sin than actual religious people do. Because you can't find many Christians that will say like, I am immune to sin. I could never be a sinner. I could never be a puppet of the devil because I'm a Christian. And it's like, well, are you practicing? Like, oh, I'm practicing Christian. I do these specific things to make sure that I don't become this. I understand the devil and I understand the devil's works. I know how he portrays himself. Like the Christian, your average fucking like psycho fuck evangelical Christian will be able to articulate the devil and how they're not like the devil because of all the things they do. Their wards and spirits and superstitions. They fucking put smoke in the air and pray 6 times a day, and they try to focus on goodly works on this earth. That's why they think that they're not the devil, but the possibility that you could fall is always part of that. But these fucking people that have like these political prescriptions about themselves think that they are somehow, just by being a part of that political prescription, completely immune to the worst possible outcomes of what any sort of politicking can do. And that's just madness to me. And it smacks of being so deep in a sense of faith, literally, that you are more bound in a religious way to your beliefs and to your own literal ontological purity than people who actually think that on Sunday, when they get a fucking little bit of a fucking cortisol fever in them, that they're talking to God and the spirit of the Holy Spirit is within them, moving their jaw and lips in synchronicity with the faith of those around them. Like, you're the same people. You were born just like everyone else. You're not better than anyone. I'm not. I'm made different than some people, and that's a good and a bad thing at times. Note the surgery I'm going to get tomorrow, at least. But it's a very important thing. Like that you can think like fascism is just equivocated to didn't bust, gonna kill Jews is fucking nuts, man. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't smack of like any sense of research into any of these things. You know, it's not like I'm a fucking high level expert. And when I was researching it, I wasn't doing it to write anything for people, but like I just read a fuckload of stuff because I thought Xander Hall's definition of socialism and his definition of fascism were fucking dog shit. With all due respect to Xander Hall. It's not like he fucking looked this stuff up. He's just banging out on the Minecraft manuals. And so I was just like, I think I want to check some of this stuff out. And I looked into it. Like if you talk about racism in Europe and you don't talk about Gobineau, I think I'm saying his right name right, or at least getting close. Gobineau. Like, dude, you're fucking off the mark, man. You got to go. That's Enlightenment thinking still too. Like, yeah, man. Every man should vote, but also 3 races: brown or fucking black, yellow, and white. Like that's fucking nuts, right? But those are core foundational ideas. In many of these systems that we're a part of, including the one I'm a part of. I was taught that goddamn tripartite racial system in school at some point. And I still was like, what in the fuck does that, what the fuck is Mongoloid? What the fuck does that mean? It just sounds racist, doesn't it? Caucasoid. Oh, Caucasian, actually. The other two are oid. You know what I mean? You're a Caucasian. You're not Mongolasian or Negrasian. You're fucking Mongoloid. What the fuck is that? My man said, me and whatever the fuck that is. Ultra racist. French, of course. I think he fucking exportated to Germany or Austria, so no surprise there.
That gives
Populism can come from either political spectrum, and it's a gateway to totalitarianism. It's also hard to deal with because popularity is part of democracy. Yeah, it's just you have to fucking know about it, and you can't ignore it. That's really all it is. It's where it starts with. It's just I hate to go back to like a Christian religion all the fucking time, but it's just like one of the moral foundations of where I'm from. Sorry, but like, sin or no, the sin is in you. It's like just very important. You know what I mean? Like, literally, just understand that we are all flawed creations, right? People are trying to hammer that home in motherfuckers the entire time. Just understand that you are as broken and flawed as everyone else around you. And if they can be misled, so can you. And the person that's the easiest to mislead every time is the person that thinks they're the most unlikely to be misled. That's why I always tell you guys, I'm a fucking dumbass. I get tricked. I've been deceived. I've drank the fucking Kool-Aid a few times, and I'm glad I'm alive. That's how I can tell you from some level of experience that at least you should know. If you don't think you've ever been tricked, it's probably the biggest indicator that you might be getting bamboozled ATM.
Gives them permission and power to begin like restructuring the country to their desired image, and that would not look good for you or even for them, by the way. Fascism doesn't tend to work out well for the fascists either. You know, it inevitably burns itself out, and a lot of people are hurt or killed in the process. It's not like, you know, this process makes life better for the average like white guy or whatever.
Fucking cum scoundrel. Sounds like regargled fascist pooblum to me, Tyler. Did you not see the second shot of the bug's eye? Owned it, checkmated. I am smarterner. What's that, Tyler? Would you consider a military command structure authoritarian? If not, why not? Only if you're in the military. That's kind of the thing. A military, specifically when you're in the military, is authoritarian because you're in the military. But the stratocracy is not the military. First off, this is a very important point to make. People think that everyone that's in the Federation is in the military. It's not the case. The military has administrative privileges over the general legislative and executive and judicial actions underneath them. So you have to go to military courts, and you have to go to the military, or veterans take care of voting, legislation, and I think active duty to some degree, or officers are placed at the height of the executive authority. It's kind of the case with us anyway. The chief executive officer is in America, the president is the fucking head of the armed forces. So like that's still the case in America. A stratocracy handling those things does not mean that you're part of the military command structure. It just doesn't. So even if the military structure is authoritarian, which it is in America as well, it needs to be, because also the structure of your job at work is authoritarian. You have a boss who can fire you, right? You have to do what that individual says, and you don't have a say in it because you've agreed. With the Starship Troopers United Citizens Federation, and to a greater extent the one that's in the book, not only is it not the case that it's not authoritarian specifically as a stratocracy, it's a volunteer military, which means that if you can even join the military and it's not mandatory conscription, and that's a founding principle. The non-conscripted, non-draftee military is a founding principle of the entire, they say literally that government, it does not exist if they can't maintain that. The government doesn't deserve to exist if it can't maintain a volunteer army, which is very fucking hard. That's why most societies on Earth, up until recently, didn't have it. An all-volunteer military is next to unheard of. Historically, it's very difficult, especially at large levels, right? We didn't have an all-volunteer military in America until like the fucking 80s, right? Where you could say like, or at least going into the 90s, when you can say like, hey, we did Operation Gulf Storm, and we did not initiate a draft. And in 20 years of fighting in the new millennium, we did not institute a draft. We, cajoled people. We offered, basically bribed people to join, but it was an all volunteer force, which is insane. An all volunteer force of that magnitude requires you to be good to your citizens. Literally, like your citizens have got to be fed, watered, and cared for. They have to want to fight. They have to want to join. They have to want to fight. They have to want to be a part of it, which is kind of hammered home throughout the entirety of the book. And even to a degree, the people that are in the movie are there voluntarily and like it. They enjoy being in the military, except for the bad parts, but they're volunteers. They don't quit. They don't run away. No one surrenders. No one sprints except for that one shitty officer that hides in the fucking fridge. That is not an authoritarian government. You know what an authoritarian government is? Russia, which has mass conscription right now. They're dragging people off the street and making them fight. Even to a degree, Ukraine has an authoritarian bent because it's a wartime. They're doing martial law, I believe, to some degree in Ukraine. Maybe you don't believe it is martial law. Maybe it's not to them. But there is an aspect of martial law being put in place. You know what I mean? There's limited amounts of freedom, specifically like the executive branch is getting some additional legislative and judicial authority or being provided authority that those two branches are normally given. However, they're kind of set up in that country. In Russia, it's crazy different. Russia's had the same guy for a little while, right? Russia fucked up. They did not replace Putin. That's what authoritarian looks like, even though it's not actually a stratocracy. It's ostensibly a liberal government, democracy, republic. I don't know how, confederation, however the fuck they organize in Russia. The UCF has a stratocracy. The military is the administrative body, but the citizens fall outside of it. And it's repeatedly said that they do. They don't have a vote, but honestly, like a lot of people in America don't use their vote anyway. And if you want to vote, you just have to do 2 years of service, which isn't necessarily infantry. You can just join and do dumb shit, basically like volunteer work for 2 years, get out, and then you have the bid. Now, sometimes they do fucking extend the contracts, and that's a pain in the ass and a very unfortunate and kind of ugly part of that, but they are at massive war with a gigantic spacefaring super beasto demon. But the other people are still like, they don't have to join. You know what I mean? They don't have to join. Women are free to have kids at whatever rate that they want to. Women have a lot of authority and a lot of leeway to pursue their own career goals. Women can be in charge, which is usually not an aspect of authoritarian government. It's very rare that you see an authoritarian government with a fucking lady in charge of it. So, like, I mean, you can say it's authoritarian because there's people that are in charge that are also, like, the military is also in charge, but the people that are in charge of the military are usually the people that are in charge of a government anyway, throughout history and basically everywhere. And so just kind of changing that organizational structure to be that civilians are no longer the ones that get automatically get the vote and get to go up. I don't think that it's such an egregious change. And more to the point, you don't actually see it in practice IRL. Like, it's a fucking utopian narrative in a space world that, or a spacey universe, spacefaring society that's thousands of years advanced of us. And like, he can try to get, you could try to like, oh, well, why don't you tell me the fucking faults with it? And he gives you a few, but generally just says like, nah, it fucking works. Society that works. Like, even Verhoeven says, literally, it's a society that works, which is valuable compared to the society we live in right now, which is very often a society that doesn't work, which is what fascists offer you. Hey, this society's fucked. You want a society that works? Try this cool thing, you know? That's the law. Another fucking big explanation for that I didn't necessarily need to do. A fun term. The term Caucasian comes from the super racist anthropologist who found a skull in the Caucasus Mountain that he thought was so sexy it must come from a person. I'm about 90% sure we're talking about the same guy, Gabino. Or actually might have been a friend of his. And that guy said that, and then Gabino took it and ran with it, if I remember correctly. I've heard of mass North Korea desertions. I don't know how much of it is true. I wouldn't be surprised at all. North Koreans are under so much pressure that like the ability to desert at all is probably just very, very like addictive, just because you have freedom put in front of you for the first time. You know, like if you told a dog, like, hey dog, if you run out into the desert outside of this car, you might die. But if you open the door, the dog that's been in a car for a long time, so you're like, I'm fucking running into this desert. Like the possibility of freedom for people can be so extraordinary that it's like, you know, you can't resist it. And then sometimes it's like, hey, you can leave if you want. I'll open the door. It's like, I don't really want to.
Ever. It's just they tend to be the ones suckered into it. You know, you've got like the mad like incel types online who genuinely think that liberals want to, you know, import the third world to impregnate all the beautiful white women they think ought to be their girlfriend or something. It sounds silly, but so is fascism. What do you want from me? The bourgeoisie as a class are generally aligned towards fascism in an era of populism where people are increasingly distrustful of institutions. People want to be fed messages that confirm their populist beliefs, their critical eye towards institutions. After 2008, you know, you have the financial crisis, you have the subprime mortgage. I
want to address this too. I think this is a big mistake that we often make, and that is that the bourgeoisie has a tendency toward fascism specifically. I think because if it did, I mean, if you really think about it, like extrapolate it out, if the Bouge had a tendency toward fascism, they hold all the cards. Why wouldn't there just be fascism? You know what I mean? Which I think some people do make that argument. The bourgeoisie owners, if you want to just articulate it as owners versus laborers, and not have to use fucking archaic French terminology. Owners, if you think about the owners of America, you know what I mean? Major corporate holders, stakeholders, and all that stuff. There's probably fascists amongst them as there are fascists amongst anybody. But I think largely self-preservation and the preservation of capital is the capitalist, the owner's biggest concern. And fascism as a populist movement is as dangerous to them as socialism. And very, very fortunately, self-articulated fascists and self-articulated socialists can quite easily be placed against each other. You know what I mean? And as a populist movement, if it doesn't have sort of the warrant of society itself, you can use it to distract everybody while basically paying for it to just rise up for a bit and then paying for it to go away. Self-preservation has always been the most obvious choice of every single wealthy liberal capitalist elite. the preservation of one's own wealth and status. You know what I mean? Maybe their kids, their disaffected children sometime down the line who see maybe the writing on the wall that they're never going to make as much as daddy did because they don't have the opportunities, because they don't have the fucking skill, whatever. They will start going a little fashy here and there. And fascism is just a thing that's kind of attractive to people because of, you know, the trappings that it's been given, at least in the 1950s following. But I don't think that there is a push towards fascism naturally from the bourgeoisie or from the capitalist overlords because it doesn't benefit them in the long run. Fascism will, by nature, find an in-group to select for, and because of the diversification of wealth in America amongst kind of literally any single type of person that exists, we have homosexual, transgender, gay, or fucking the three classes of people. You know, we have transgender, homosexual, black, white, Latino, Asian subcontinental Indian, East Asian, North Asian, fucking African, many very, very varied chunks of European, and all of those things sort of intermingled, billionaires, millionaires, and approaching sometime eventually soon trillionaires in America. They can tell, you know what I mean? Jay-Z wants to preserve Jay-Z's wealth. Jay-Z is a billionaire. He's a landlord. He's bouge. He's a capitalist. He's at the top of the fucking feeding pyramid, right? He wants to eat forever because that's what a capitalist does. He's got it. It's in his songs. He just tells you what it's up, what the fucking score is. He does not want a white ethno state. He probably will calculatedly pay into here and there or do something that benefits white supremacists somewhere down the line because that benefits his bottom dollar, and somebody's helped him fucking work out the actuarial tables where it's like, yeah, if you do this, you do that, you do this. Yeah, some fucking Hitler fuck will try to run for office in, you know, bumfuck east side of Illinois. But it's not a big thing, you know, whatever. Like, yeah, he hates black people, but what you're going to get on the other end is another fucking 2.2 billion to your portfolio. And we're definitely going to get that vote that deregulates this, that, and the other, because more importantly than being a fucking Nazi, this guy is very, very pro-business. Okay, yeah, let's do that, man. You know, that's how billionaires think. And the second that fasci or whatever the fuck stops being useful, then they get waysided. The biggest issue right now is that everybody kind of overate, which is always the issue with capitalists, and created almost pre-revolutionary conditions for fascists and their populist uprising in the American right wing. And accelerationists on the leftist side wanted to push for that as well, and they should be held to his account as much. But these fucking bougie people, you know, your Dr. Oz's and stuff, they're not going to reach across the as of yet established aisle to try to balkanize America into the divided states from the man in the high tower. They're not going to try to create Japanese West Coast, semi-American North fucking Midwest, the good old racist white South, and then like German America on the East Coast. It's not going to benefit them. That's bad for business ultimately. Okay, there's a lot of gambles. Gambles go wrong, but just the thought that the bourgeoisie are just like fashy is nuts. They're self-interested, they're self-involved, but they're probably some of the most liberal and libertine people out there, as evidenced by all the pedophilia that happens and the weird sex parties and all of the occultism. They want maximalized, liberalized freedom. They're more likely to become libertarians that want to become their own petty dictators in the middle of America, which is more of it's not fashy at that point. It's just, I want to be a fucking like sole dictator of fucking, you know, for Kid Rockistan. You know what I mean? I want to have Kid Rockatopia, and it's just, that's just a monarchy at that point. It's a singular familial line, which is what fascisms can turn into. You know, once a dictatorship goes to its natural route and becomes some sort of hereditary monarchy after the end of things, because once you start consolidating power, you have to consolidate to one person, and that one person's only going to give power to one other type of person. It's whatever came out of their balls. That's pretty much it. Yeah, but that's not really like a bent towards fascism. That's just a bent towards being fucking literally the only guy with power, which is still just kind of liberalism when you let it go. But those kind of people do balance each other out in America, kind of extremely. And even they're getting irritated to some pretty substantial degrees by the fact that at their level, people like Elon Musk, who's now trying to push towards the balkanization type, like, I don't know, why don't we just disintegrate America and, we'll see where the cards fall. Even when you see that person eating too much, those high level liberals are like, okay, this is actually fucking bad for business. And their collective bargaining at that high level, their class consciousness is going to be more valuable against those guys than our completely fucking distracted and ineffectual Hassan style organizing down here. But I think it's a lot more complex than just, if you're rich, you're fascist. And if you're fascist, you don't get your dick wet enough. Because honestly, like, if you're rich, you probably fuck insane amount. Like, Elon Musk, as repugnant as he is, has like, what, 25 fucking kids? Nick Cannon's on like child 50. You know what I mean? The rich fuck. So like, if fascism comes from sexual involuntary celibacy, then why would they be fascist? They can pay for sex that you can't even dream of. And we're talking to the guy that fuck AI horse porn dude.
Crisis, you have like a rising inflation. Now you have this feeling of job insecurity because of the gig economy and because of the way the modern globalized economic superstructure functions.
Wasn't small business owners who voted for fascism, at least in Nazi Germany? No one really voted for fascism in Nazi. That was a whole fucking thing. Like they stormed the rise of Nazis. Were not the most popular party. They fucking cheated the system, and they're basically post World War I. Just hyper simplification. Jesus, go talk to some kraut fuck. They'll explain it to you way better. Post World War I. Germany was fucked with reparations and stuff, and there was an ineffectual government. The Hindenburg administration was its own whole thing. And basically, Hitler seized power by becoming like the special chancellor to Germany. He did not win a popular election. There was not like a moment where Germans were like, you know what? Fucking 99% of us are like, fucking, it's Hitler time. Let's go. There was popular sentiment for him, but it was very similar to like Trump in Trump in 2012, where people were like, I could see that happening. I could see that working. I like the cut of this guy's jib. And then instead of running for election, he ran for this sideways thing and gained the chancellorship, used emergency powers, I believe, as the chancellor to become basically the Führer, the head fucking person of Germany, remove Hindenburg and Hindenburg's like people from power. And then the consolidation of power didn't come from democracy. It came from Kristallnacht, or sorry, not Kristallnacht, Stillenacht, which is like the night of long knives. They just went and fucking murdered everybody else. That's how they gained power. Don't forget the mass political assassinations of even people within his own party to consolidate power. That was the most important part. It wasn't like, fucking business leaders really like this Hitler guy, so we're just gonna like bypass the entire governance of all of Germany to give this one guy power. It was like their political fucking organization in the brown shirts, which is a very violent political organization, wheedled and deedled in a economically obliterated post-war Germany that had an already fucky governmental setup and a weak kind of overseer in Hindenburg, used special powers and weirdo fuck elections to bypass the extent political process. And then fucking once they got enough power, they just murdered everyone else. And then it became kind of like, hey, illegal to fight against fucking, to be like, I don't really like this Nazis shit. That was bad. All of the there was a lot of support for Hitler comes from Triumph des Wills, which is like, literally there was a Nazi Congress at Nuremberg. You had rules because they had the brown shirts and shit. Like, hey, we're going to get everybody together and it's going to seem like all of Germany is into this because we're only going to put the fucking people that are 100% with us in these big rallies. Remember, I've got the biggest rallies. It's the best. So many people are out here. It's the same fucking thing. Hitler did that. And then it just kind of convinced the national narrative that that was the best thing. And it was also, if you have 30% of people, even like roughly out there, like willing to kind of like maybe inform on you and or kill you if you step out of line, all of a sudden, like, Germany becomes this terrified, fearful nightmare hellscape where, like, all of a sudden, like, economically you seem like you're doing pretty fucking good and people are disappearing every day. So it's like, smile and get along, or you might fucking be one of those random gunshots you hear in the middle of the night sometimes. It's way more complex than it was just like, well, what happened was the business owners that, you know, like, they just wanted to, it was just a pretty much like fucking capitalism in action again. No, it was literal sociopaths with a sociopath to the helm were not impeded by checks and balances the entire time and used violence, coercion, and literal fucking metagaming of the system to take power in ways that were kind of predictable to a lot of people and never stitched up in time. And then once everyone that could oppose them was dead, they just literally dummy government all the way up, top to bottom. Party, 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 party. Stalin did the same fucking thing in Lenin, I guess. Whatever the fuck. The Russians did the exact same thing in fucking Russia. They used slightly different fucking methods, and they did a full revolution instead of doing a sort of like, dummy revolution the way that the fucking the Germans did. It's great. Like, look at a fucking actual German historian, but it's way more complicated than just like capitalism had run amok. Like, capitalism hadn't run amok anywhere near as much as inflation had run amok. Demilitarization, deindustrialization, and reparations. It was just a fucking nightmare place to live. And then it was again after the second time. And then you had East and West Germany, and that was a whole fucking big ass pain in the ass. Support for the Nazis also went up to a solid 90+% when they defeated France. Yeah, it's fucking, Bosch is a Nazi. It's just very, very complicated. And it does change year over year over year over year over year. You know what I mean? Like, the starting of where you go is not where you end up. Governments change on a year-to-year basis. Even when they're like totalitarian, authoritarian governments, they still are constantly in flux. People are always out for themselves and trying to achieve their own ends, and so things change. You know what I mean? There's a lot of assassination attempts against fucking Hitler while he was in office. Yeah, big business owners met with Hitler before everything happened. He told them they get a lot of cheap labor and deregulation, and they supported him, which they needed because they had a fucking completely fucked economy. Night of the Black Knives. Hindenburg thought he could control Hitler, but he was old as shit, so he died immediately. Yeah. Nobody wins overall majorities in multi-party systems with proportional representation. The Nazis did win a plurality of votes, and they were supported by enough of the right to create a coalition. All right, fair then. Yeah, Hitler only allowed private industries who were aligned with party interests. You're on the in-group. But yeah, there was major business owners too. The inflation was in 1923, which is really like the beginning of black shirt shit. It was a long time coming. The early 1920s is the beginning of like brown shirt shit and like fucking squabbles in the street and like little bits of this and that. It wasn't like, you know, they woke up one day and it's Hitler. There's a lot of times where you could have like slowed this shit down. And it's one of the things where like the greater international community should have been better to Germany, because that's kind of the thing. You can't fucking kill everybody. There's going to be a lot of negative sentiment following a war. And then there's also going to be a lot of injured, displaced, and out of work people, a lot of former military people with skills and time on their hands. And you really, if you set something up like that and then you kind of economically depress the region and you provide them no assistance in rebuilding, or very limited or very conditional assistance in rebuilding and stuff, you can set up conditions that'll cause a fucking like maelstrom of new ideas, so to say. 33%. Yeah, it's like hardly like a major, like a majority.
A lot of people feel like life right now is fragile and tenuous and bureaucratic and alienating and unconcerned with their needs. So they're populist. They want fundamental changes. Liberals tend to be bad at promising fundamental changes because they are very institutionally inclined. Fascists love to promise sweeping changes. Will they actually do them? Sometimes. Hitler talked a big game about workers' rights and dismantling, autocratic and oppressive corporations when he was not in power, and then when he
wasn't also the Nazis blatantly misrepresented what they were about, saying they had X% of the vote, what isn't as meaningful when they lied about themselves. Well, the Nazis were completely dishonest start to finish. One of the best ways to kind of describe how the Nazis interacted with the truth was when they annexed, I believe, and if you're a European, please correct me, I think it's when they annexed Czechoslovakia or the Czech Republic or whatever that area was, Prague, when they moved into Prague, and they brought them in, there was a referendum, just like when Russia took over, Kharkiv and all that shit or whatever the fuck. I can't ever remember that giant chunk. Dylan Burns fans can be mad at me. When they did the annexation of Crimea, thank you. The annexation of Crimea and stuff, they had the referendum in Crimea, do you want to stay with the Russians? You know what I mean? The Germans did a very similar thing when they went to Prague and annexed that little area. And I think that's a series of the other areas where it was a ballot, right? And it said hey, do you want to join the German Republic or whatever the fuck? You know what I mean? Do you want to join the Reich? And in the middle was a fucking dot this big, and it said, yeah, exclamation point. And then there was a tiny little circle in the bottom left corner of it, or the bottom right corner of it, that said 9, in small print underneath. So it was which button to press. So all of this stuff is kind of hazy, and it's all full of fucking jibber jabber. The Nazis, like most fascist governments, were mostly about self-preservation after a certain point. The Sudetenland, probably. I can't fucking remember.
Was in power, man loved big business. So, people are often,
and people who were already super anti-Semitic before Hitler. Didn't help that many Jewish people were socialists. They often double targeted. The last solution shit doesn't happen out of nowhere. No. It's a whole fucking thing.
Hitler, when he's out of power, all big business is Jewish and it's screwing the average German over. Hitler, when he is in power, actually big business is great. Get along with the bourgeoisie. They have your best interests at heart. They don't have your best interests at heart, folks. They don't, trust me. So the bourgeoisie also tend to align with right-leaning populism because left-leaning populism is usually critical of capitalism as an institution, and businesses don't like it when countries become...
Anschluss. You're correct there. Anschluss.
I'm critical of capitalism because then you start nationalizing industry and it's a whole rigmarole, right? So these are the groups that Donald Trump is being puppeted by. And I'm speaking very generally here. I'm not trying to speak conspiratorially. The idea of a president being beholden to interest is not new and not specific to Trump. It is just important in my mind to understand where this is all coming from. Trump has been making a lot of wild claims lately, like a flat 20% tariff on the entire world. I don't think he's actually going to do that because it would be very bad for the economy if he did so. And so much of his support comes from the bourgeoisie, the capital interests, big business, that it would be strange for them to pressure Donald Trump into implementing a policy that would hurt their businesses very badly. It might benefit some businesses, but as a class, the bourgeoisie tend to prefer free trade, which is for the most part what American economic policy is leaned in.
The Austria Anschluss stuff is controversial. Fair enough. This is stuff, by the way, where me and I guess to a lesser extent, Vosh, are kind of popping off about this shit. But understand, German regional history from 1900 to 1923 alone is thick. Okay, 23 to 33 gets about twice as thick, and then 33 to right around 45 kind of. No, I'm just kidding. That shit's it's very difficult because not only it's not a case where there's not much information, it's actually that there's so much information. There's a lot of chunks of that shit where people are still finding bunkers and stuff, or offices where you have just filing cabinets, right? And just imagine that you can change the entire historical record by going into some fucking office in Prague that had been boarded up in 1985 after it was an impromptu post office for 40 years. And then when you go into one of the back offices and stuff, oh yeah, those were locked when the last people took off the building, and you unlock the fucking filing cabinet, and then all of a sudden you have 20 years or 7 or 8 years of hand signed Nazi records or something. Shit like that happens in Europe. all the fucking time. Like, oh, well, fuck. We thought that specifically this county, all of these things happened. Now there's a little line that gets drawn too. So like stuff can change, not like drastically, but like when you're trying to break down the specifics and little tiny, tiny, teeny, tiny things, it goes all over the place. More than likely, somebody's going to hear me talking about this and be like, you're completely fucking wrong. But none of that takes into account what I'm really trying to fucking articulate with fascism anyway. The Austria before being annexed was ruled under a fascist regime. The FD in Germany is using, is that the new fascist? Is using actual NSDAP posters, just change the Jews with Muslims and trans people. That's, yeah, fucking, they're coming back. Sudetenland is in Czech, but it was in the Sudetenland. It probably was that. It's probably similar there too, but I'm specifically corrected. I'm talking about the Anschluss, which is the Lebensraum into Austria movement. If you want a fun parallel between Trump, Musk, and Hitler, IG Farben and Quip donated about 30 million in today's dollars to the Nazis in 1933. Shit's fucking everywhere, man.
Didn't know. So I think that Trump is just basically saying shit, and whatever like eccentric, irrational policies and suggestions we get from him are just a consequence of him being an imperfect puppet. He's not like JD Vance, you know. He's not like Ron DeSantis, you know. He's not like a little corpo suit you can stuff a hand up into and manipulate like a puppet. Donald Trump is egotistical and narcissistic and probably very difficult to rein in. So even though he's being effectively used as a puppet, he's kind of blabbing, you know. It's not a perfect process, which is why JD Vance is the VP pick. He can be controlled, which is why Fox News and a bunch of other right-leaning institutions were leaning in with DeSantis for a while, because he can be easily controlled. Trump, not so much, mostly because he's self-absorbed, not because he's like willfully opposed to the idea of being controlled by big business, which he has. Don't what they see as unconstitutional orders. The Supreme Court like flitting in between being openly partisan and being like I don't know, pretending that their jobs aren't like completely made up. You know, pretending they have principles. Maybe nothing for 4 years, like basically nothing happens, and then Trump, like, I don't know, shits his diaper, falls down the stairs, dies, and we have a regular election in 2028. I don't know. Maybe things end up better. I regard to like whether or not that's a want that. My neighbor's one of those 3%ers, then either work very hard to befriend them or move. So, you know, those are the options for you. This is the gist of it. This is the gist of it. And I would also say, just as a general rule, be careful and save money. I mean it. I don't want to do like the Jordan Peterson thing, but try to order your life. Go out on a walk every once in a while. Get some exercise, get some cardio. Try to eat well. Don't spend a bunch of money on alcohol, marijuana, or creature comforts. Try to save. You might have to live an austere life for a little while. Maybe you're already living one. I'm not saying that you're at fault if you're out of money. I'm just saying I think it would be good if you were as careful as possible with this sort of thing. I think that would be good. You never know when it's going to come in handy. Yeah, learn how to cook.
Okay, thank you. I don't know. I was kind of like, I wasn't taking him seriously enough. I should have fucking streamed that entire thing like this. Who knows what the fuck Vosh had to say? He ended in, don't buy your. You stop buying them $5 coffees and going out to drink twice a week. You're going to save a lot of money, which is literally true. But you also might be a lot less happy. So if you think that you and all of your friends are going to die in February, I mean, I think that might be a good time to have a drink. I don't know what you're saving for if you actually think roving death squads are going to pop around. I mean, buy gold and buy guns. I think at that point, my ultimate thing though, fascism is not socialist. Let me just point that out. Fascism isn't socialism. It kind of like bone cancer isn't bone. All right. I think that's what people get confused by when I say it. As a sort of cancerous change, it becomes something that it's not. And once it starts evolving in that direction, it usually just goes in toward some sort of finality of totalitarianism and dictatorship. That's kind of where it always heads to. Because really, once you start doing the draw the line, select for us and them type shit, you can only start drawing the circle smaller and smaller, and usually you start drawing the circle in your head before you start drawing the one that's on the map, because you want to take care of other people way sooner, and then it just becomes something else completely different. Like if you ever see bone cancer, it doesn't really look like bone. It looks like a bunch of feathers and spikes and shit shooting off of the fucking lamina. A word I know because I'm getting mine cut off tomorrow. That's kind of the point. It's not that socialism is fascism. It's that socialism can become fascism overnight because people aren't paying strictly enough attention to it. All of the conditions that can lead to a socialist revolution can and have led to fascist revolutions because people weren't paying enough attention. Because the people that you let take charge of the revolution, the people that put themselves ahead, started doing other shit and then they take it over. Monarchist revolutions don't lead to fascism. They lead to monarchism. It's kind of interesting, right? Liberal revolutions don't tend to lead toward fascism. They just tend to lead to, at most, balkanization and at worst, liberalism. You know what I mean? Of its varied forms. But socialist revolutions have a particular and very, very virulent risk associated with them of becoming fascist, even if not immediately down the road, because really of the susceptibility of a truly equitable or egalitarian precursor setup where we're all equal, giving exceeding credence to people of notable amounts of personality or access to necessary resources for the revolution that puts them in a position that is higher than everyone else. As much as it sucks to say, Animal Farm is a better way to figure out how fascism comes across than Umberto Eco's fascism is. That's kind of what happens. Everyone says, yeah, we're here. We're ready for the fucking revolution. We're about to do it. It's like, yeah. And we're all equal. But some of us are a little more equal than others. And how often have you heard that in online lefty spheres? You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ, that might be, oh, fuck, that's it. Oh my God, that's the fucking essay. Kill me. Kill me, that's the fucking essay. That's what it is. Explaining the possible shortfallings and the short failings and risks of socialist revolution to adults via Animal Farm that might be it. Someone wants to beat me to it, go for it. Hey, fucking Bug Streamer, that one's about fucking as long as you can handle in a single hangover. Bro, that might be it. Because that's really just the case. It's what I'm trying to tell people. Of course, someone else fucking got to it before me, but people like to, you ignore the message and you try to kill the messenger, but that's really what it is. Do people not find it strange at all? And I'll keep saying this again and again and again until people stop. How many lefty internet revolutionaries start off in a similar position to me or anyone else, similar position to the one you're in right now, working a 9-to-5er, okay? Working a 9-to-5. And then they get a little bit of money and a little bit of crowd, and then all of a sudden, somehow, it doesn't feel like socialism anymore. And we start drawing big in-groups inside the in-group, just a slightly more important in-group that keeps shrinking and becoming more fervent and aggressive. And the one thing that they can all agree on in the in-group is just that the guy, whoever the guy is the most important guy. And protecting the guy is kind of like a big deal, because not protecting the guy, that's what the other people do on the outside of the in and out circle do. It sucks because it's very simplistic, and it's not, you don't have to do a lot of navel gazing. And once you notice it, you can fucking work against it. You can just say, hey, you're doing a fascism. This is precursor fascist. Stop it. He's going to be that's a fascist. You know fucking Barry? You guys ever seen Barry? That guy's here to kill me. What? It's one of our guys. All right. No, he's here to kill me. Whoever he is, he's here. He's going to kill me. He's got something. He's going to kill me with it. He's a fascist. What? Oh, that's notable lefty political. That's one of the largest political figures, leftist political figures on earth. What do you mean a fascist? Yeah, he's becoming a fascist. He's turning into a fascist. That guy's becoming a fascist. He's embracing terrorism and violence to change the world. He's a fascist. The Weimar Republic Revolution still had all the old conservatives in bureaucracy offices, and then the Social Democrats killed off all the communists. Yeah. I mean, you can work on it all you want. But really, like, I feel like a simplistic, straightforward definition. I think it's just people want to separate like these things into like morality, and they want to have like a, you know, a pre-existing bias towards them being right. But the case is, it's just like, dude, you should have a pre-existing bias to the possibility that you're wrong. You know what I mean? If you have to do consistent propaganda to yourself and your immediate circle to make sure that you're the right ones, you might be the fucking wrong ones. You might not be the guy. You might be the opposite of the fucking guy.
Hope you enjoyed your time on